Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Thursday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. It is going to be a busy show. A new UFC segment coming up. We get ready for Thursday Night Football in the Canadian Football League, and we continue to get ready for the NFL season with a look at teams that could go worst to first, and we give another mock draft a try. So, a lot to get to. Let's get to it with the latest addition to our UFC coverage. It is UFC Stock Watch. All right, whose stock went up, whose stock went down after UFC 305? I promise the up isn't just going to be fighters who won, and the down isn't just going to be fighters who lost. We'll give a little bit more nuance than that for this particular one here today. But let's start with the up, as Dricus du Plessis obviously is one of the ones whose stock rises immensely coming off of this particular occasion. I think I know he moved up in my pound for pound rankings. He erases a lot of the questions of Israel Adesanya just kind of hanging over everything in this division as kind of like the great fighter who he hadn't stopped yet. But to come away with that victory is just so impressive and really, really intriguing now going forward to see what he can do. He locks in as the unquestioned number one in this division, and now there's talk of him moving up for a champ v champ mega fight with Pereira. So he obviously sees his stock just skyrocket going forward. The other one that another fighter who we see their stock kind of shoot up, and that is Kai Kara France. He gets a big KO win against a former title challenger. It feels like he is either in line for his next bout being a championship bout, or at least being a title eliminator or something along those lines. A loss, and it kind of maybe felt like he was falling into a bit of a gatekeeper type of a role. So this was a huge win for him to see his stock rise in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Same thing with Dan Hooker. He gets a win against a top 5 opponent. He showed some really good stand-up in this fight and did a really good job of getting up against a very strong wrestler. And so now he gets back into those big fights, title type of conversations when it kind of felt like there was a chance that, that he was going to start kind of falling back into that gatekeeper type of a status. So a gigantic win for him. But I think even in defeat, Mateusz Gamrot sees his stock rise. I thought he won that fight. I thought his wrestling was great. His control was very good as well. He landed some damage, especially in that first round, and he showed some improved stand-up. And so you are really starting to see a bit of a well-rounded mixed martial artist come out in Gamrot. And I think that is a very fascinating development here, that he's not just going to be a wrestler and just a ground and pound guy. This is someone who at least is going to give you some problems on the feet as well, and that is something that I think the Ultimate Fighting Championship can really start to take advantage of here with this fighter going forward. And last one for the fighters whose stock is on the way up, that would be Carlos Praedas, as he put on just a clinic on the feet, showed fantastic work in the stand-up in beating a very solid fighter in Li Jingyang coming out of this one. So I think his stock is certainly on the rise coming out of UFC 305. So not just who won and who lost, but a little bit of who is on the rise there for sure. As far as the down arrow, it's pointing down slightly on Israel Adesanya. I thought he was winning this fight until he got caught, but that is 3 losses in his last 4. And it does kind of feel like there needs to be a bit of a rehab go on with him before we get him into like major championship opportunity situations and stuff like that. So that this does feel like a particular fighter who, again, I thought he showed up. I thought he looked great. I'm an Izzy fan always, but he now needs to get back on track. And so because of that, he is in the stock going down category. Steve Erceg as well. He gets popped, and he has now lost the 2 biggest fights of his career now. And that is really disappointing for him. He needs to get a major name on that resume to get going, because now the 2 best fighters that he has fought, he has lost to. And so it's starting to be like, okay, you can beat everyone else. Can you beat these high level fighters? I thought Kai Kara France might have been that opportunity. It wasn't. And so he loses. And that's difficult, I think, for him to kind of take. Even in victory, I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik really sees his stock drop out of UFC 305. He was actually rather convincing in a win, but a decision win over a guy who had lost his last four by knockout or finish isn't all that impressive. It just didn't really seem like a real dominating performance, and it just didn't seem like, oh man, we need to see this guy again. It was like, all right, well, Rosenstruck had a fight, and that was that. And so now let's see if he can build off of this. But I have no interest in a, oh man, let's go out and see Rosenstruck now and see what he can do. I'm not there with this fighter. And so off of that as well, it's Tai Tuivasa in there for me. He has 5 losses in a row. He looked really soundly outclassed on the feet in this fight against the guy in the bottom part of the top 15. And so to me, it's so obvious that he needs quite a few rehab fights before we're getting him back into anything of note in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And the last one is Li Jingliang. He was soundly outclassed on the feet. It's the first time he's ever lost by knockout. First time back in a couple of years, so I think he'll be fine. But this one did not help his stock any. That this one is really taking a dip. So that is the Stock Watch coming out of UFC 305. Let's move to the world of football now, as the Canadian Football League gets back underway tonight with a gigantic return with the Argos taking on the Riders. Let's talk about it. All right, Thursday Night Football tonight sees the Toronto Argonauts taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the biggest question coming into this game is which Chad Kelly shows up, because we all just sat there and watched Nathan Rourke not show up in his first time back in a couple of years. Kelly is a little bit more familiar with everything. Like, it's only been a couple of years for Rourke, but A, hasn't really played a whole lot over the last couple of seasons. And B, there's actually been a bit of turnover out there in BC. The same can't really be said for Toronto. That this is a team that he played with just last November and was even practicing with at the start of training camp. So I do think that there is at least something there for him to kind of fall back onto. But the other part of it is he doesn't really have to do much to be the best quarterback this team has seen all season long. And again, I don't like talking positive about this guy based off of accusations and the suspension and all of that. But it is very obvious he is one of the best quarterbacks and most talented players in the Canadian Football League. Now, he is facing a defense that has caused problems for teams all season long. Last time we saw Kelly in a real CFL game, he was throwing to the wrong team a lot, and Saskatchewan is very good at making you do that. They are getting more pressure on the quarterback than I thought they would this year with Johnson, with Carney. Cox has been in there as well, and Milligan is picking everything off, and so that has been great. So that defense is good, but the Toronto defense now looks scary. They are mostly healthy. No McManus, which we'll get to in a second, but Aromalade, Saresna, Amos, all really, really strong pieces. There are some very good complementary spots on this team as well. And so they can give the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I think, a lot of problems in this game. They are still missing Wynton McManus. A very talented player against a very good Rider offense that looked better with Trevor Harris than they did with Shea Patterson, obviously. The thing that gave me pause about not putting this into my best bets is with no McManus, the Argos have been a little bit vulnerable to the middle of the field. Reggie Begelton ate them alive in a couple of games on passes over the middle of the field, and that is where Trevor Harris really seemed to dine. New receiver Myers has done a great job over the middle of the last couple of weeks. You're getting Keenan Schaefer-Baker back as well, so that is a player who can kind of settle into that area. And so with no McManus kind of ranging in the middle and the big part of the field there, what passing lanes are available for Trevor Harris? So I think this game probably goes under, and I think it probably goes to Toronto, but I do think Saskatchewan is a very interesting live dog in this game as well. So that is the Thursday night preview. We'll preview the rest of the Canadian Football League coming up on Friday's show. Pivoting now to, speaking of previews, the NFL season preview continues as we look at the teams that could make a big jump in 2024. We continue our 2024 NFL season preview, looking at the teams that could go from worst to first into the 2024-2025 season. It's weird, it's unpredictable at times, but there's sometimes, and honestly, generally, some teams that make that jump from worst to first. We saw the Houston Texans make that incredible rise a season ago. So who has the opportunity to do it this year? There's only one that really strikes me in the AFC, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is 100% cheating because they were in worst, A, in the best division in football, and B, with one of the best quarterbacks in football, just not in the lineup basically all season long, whether it be literally or in his most effective form. But now Joe Burrow is back. There is a lot of conversations around the receivers. You lose Joe Mixon. I think Brown is going to be quite good. This offensive line still has some question marks. Like this isn't a stone cold lock for sure. But with Joe Burrow back, he has led this team to within one drive of the Super Bowl before. I think he is absolutely capable of doing that again with this group. But there are a lot of questions, but with Joe Burrow back, he certainly hides a lot of problems out in Cincinnati. Moving into the NFC, Chicago absolutely could. They really loaded up on the offensive side. The defense could be a bit of an issue, but there's obvious straight lines you can draw between them and the Houston Texans from a season ago. If Caleb Williams really is that dude, then this could be one of those types of years for the Chicago Bears. And then like the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love had one good year. Is there a bit of a fall off there? The Detroit Lions, I think they made my most talented teams list, but is there an injury or whatever? Like they will need probably quite a bit to go right in their favor to make this leap, but they certainly are available to be that banana peel that other teams slip on out in the NFC. And then the last one on this list, so a brief list, a quick one, but the Arizona Cardinals. You have a full year of Kyler Murray. You have drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. McBride is there. Connor is not the sexiest of weapons, but he is still a weapon. They draft Trey Benson as well. DeMarcado was an interesting kind of change of pace type of a player. Again, defensively, this team isn't a whole lot to write home about, but this could be a good offensive team. And when you look at their division, there is a very real possibility that something big goes wrong for San Francisco this year because everything went right last year. The Rams look wildly unimpressive, and the Seattle Seahawks should be good, but are we all just going to bank on Geno Smith not falling off of a cliff again this year? Who's to say? And especially with a new coach out there, who knows what's going on out in Seattle. And so, again, there could be a path open for the Arizona Cardinals to actually make a bit of a push. They are a very interesting team to me. I will say that as we get ready for the 2024 season. So those are the teams that I think have the best chance of making that jump from worst to first in the NFL this year. So that's the regular season preview. What about the fantasy season preview? Doing something a little bit different today as we look at a 2-quarterback league in a mock draft. Okay, so we are mixing things up today with the mock draft, as this is going to be for a 2-quarterback league, still 12 teams, still a half-point PPR. We just randomized it. We ended up in the number 5 spot. So let's see how this turns out. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And we are underway. So Hurts goes first, Allen second, Mahomes third, Christian McCaffrey fourth. And so we are now in a spot where CeeDee Lamb is available, Tyreek Hill. For quarterbacks, it's Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, and Dak Prescott. 2-quarterback league, I think you want to get a quarterback early on. I think that just absolutely makes sense. So we will go with Lamar Jackson locked in. CeeDee Lamb goes after that. CJ Stroud goes 8th overall. Before him, it was Lamb and Hill. After that, we do have a run of receivers of Jefferson, Chase, and St. Brown. Then Richardson goes, Bijan Robinson, and Breece Hall. So normal first-round picks going in the back of this one with A.J. Brown, Joe Burrow, Jahmyr Gibbs after that, and then Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua right before us. So now we are here in the second round with some players that obviously aren't normally there in the second round. Saquon Barkley is still available here. Marvin Harrison Jr., Jonathan Taylor, and a few others. But I have gotten in trouble going this way before with 2-quarterback leagues, but I want to see how this plays out. So let's see what happens when you go boom, boom, quarterback. Let's go Lamar Jackson. Let's go Kyler Murray. A couple quarterbacks that have that cheat code, and we're locked in. So after 2 rounds, we are the only team with 2 quarterbacks. And now, again, we have some work to do in the other positions. Travis Kelce just came off of the board. Quarterbacks we're not even looking at the rest of the way. We may do something with the backups down the line, but yeah, we're not even looking at quarterback right now. So running backs that are available, it is ETN. Oh, sorry, I meant to pop that up. There we go. Running backs that are available right now is ETN, Jacobs, Achan and Pacheco. At wide receiver, it is London, Adams, Ayuk, and Evans, with Michael Pittman there as well. At tight end, we have Laporta, McBride, Andrews, and Kincaid, and Kyle Pitts in there as well. So the tight ends, we're fine with. Running back, there's still a few that we're comfortable with. I feel like wide receiver almost falls off a bit more of a cliff. No, looking at it, we can still see down a little bit further, like Deebo Samuel and all those guys who we have ended up with are still there. So let's go with the running back spot. I spent all of last season kind of trashing him, but I have no choice but to buy in now on Travis Etienne. So to come out of that with both of our quarterbacks kind of locked in, and Travis Etienne now as our running back, I feel very, very okay with how that plays out. So it circles back around to us. A few of the tight ends have come off of the board. Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Bowers still available. So I'm not going to get too panicky about that just yet. In terms of the ADP, obviously the quarterbacks are a little bit higher. Pacheco is kind of the next best available with Rashad White. And then there's a bit of a drop down to a James Cook, but a player we're comfortable with in a James Cook. Wide receiver, we're getting to the point where it might start to fall off a little bit here. So I think I'm going to want to get that one locked in. Although, again, when you look at who could be up after us, there are still a few that I'm rather comfortable with. So I'm just going to keep riding this no wide receiver train. And we're going to go Isaiah Pacheco. So, again, we come out of this with Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and then you have Etienne and Pacheco. Now, Deebo Samuel coming off of the board in that spot does kind of sting a little bit, along with Cooper Kupp as well. We are going to probably have to go wide receiver here. Looking at it, like maybe we miss out on one of our tight ends that we've been drafting for a while, but there might be a bit of a safety blanket down there, or a safety net a little bit further down. Going James Cook here would be absolute insanity. And so maybe this kind of proved that maybe I didn't need to go Pacheco there, go one of the wide receivers, and then we get James Cook, who we're very comfortable with. But there are still some very good receivers on the board. I am going to go with DK Metcalf here. I kind of like it a little bit better than Nico Collins. So we will go DK Metcalf in that spot. Nico Collins goes right after us. Another receiver, and Devonta Smith. Then James Cook does come off of the board. Alvin Kamara, Kyle Pitts, and Evan Ingram. So we're kind of hoping we don't see Kittle pop up here as Herbert, another quarterback, gets drafted. Kenneth Walker, Keenan Allen, Joe Mixon, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins come off, and then DeAndre Swift and Tank Dell. So it comes back around to us. Kittle is still there and is the best available non-quarterback according to the rankings that they have provided us here. And I think that is absolutely something we take advantage of. I don't want to dip down into that kind of nothing area of tight end. And so even in this type of a draft where things are a little bit all over the place, getting Kittle there absolutely makes the most sense to me. And so again, we're going to bypass all of these quarterbacks. I keep forgetting to pull those rankings up. Apologies. Ramondre Stevenson is next best on the board according to the rankings here. As far as running backs go, it's him, Zamir White, Jonathan Brooks, Tony Pollard, Raheem Mostert, a little bit further down. In terms of wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, Rome Odunze, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley, Rashee Rice, and Ladd McConkey. So not a whole lot in terms of like guys we could I guess kind of stack with our quarterbacks here. And so this is generally a spot where we go tight end because there aren't a whole lot of options that I really like. I still think there's something good there in Ramondre Stevenson. So it's tempting to go that. I do, again, just looking back, we are very limited at wide receiver. Now, I do think that there might be a bit of a wide receiver run coming that we normally take advantage of with some of these players, and so because of that, I'm going to take that gamble, and I'm going to go Ramondre Stevenson here with our pick in the 7th round. Reed goes after us, followed by Jake Ferguson and Chris Godwin. Najee Harris, given the injury situation with Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris maybe should have been someone I took a bit more of a look at in that area, but Zamir White comes off the board as well. Jonathan Brooks, Tony Pollard. Jaylen Warren goes off in the 8th. I can't imagine that happens in your home league now with the injury issues he has, but Hollywood Brown, Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, Rashee Rice, Calvin Ridley as the receivers that came off, and David Njoku left us as the tight end. And so now, again, these quarterbacks being kind of in the way are a little annoying. So we'll click on that flex ranking there and see what pops up. So Jordan Addison, it sounds like you might be waiting a bit for a suspension there, so that might not actually come. He being available again, we do need our other wide receiver, but I do think that we'll probably be able to wait one. You know what? I don't want to risk it. Like Raheem Mostert has been someone we've been going with for quite a bit, but we have ETN, we have Pacheco, we have Stevenson. Let's make sure we get the receivers that we want. And so if you've been watching these for any amount of time, you know that I'm talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba or Christian Watson, also Jameson Williams in that neighborhood as well. So let's just make sure we get them with Christian Watson here being the first one. Jackson Smith-Njigba moving up these rankings a little bit. That's interesting. So Mostert does go off of the board. That is kind of something that we anticipated probably would happen. But this is going to work out great for us. As it swings back around, we still have an opportunity to get Jackson Smith-Njigba with this pick. And so we are 100% going to do that. And now all of a sudden, I feel very good about our depth at both receiver and running back now. And I feel very comfortable. And now we're seeing the run of quarterbacks kind of coming off of the board, which 100% makes sense. And honestly, maybe we waited a little bit too long to get our third and get a backup, because now we're in a spot where the quarterbacks available are Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, Geno Smith, Bryce Young, and Derek Carr. So at this spot, I'm not even going to mess around with any of that, really. And so here we have Gus Edwards as the best running back available, along with Brian Robinson, who has been a very tempting option for us so far. But I'm going to continue on with our receiver trend here and go Jameson Williams. So we get all three of the receivers that we generally hope for in this neighborhood, and I feel absolutely fantastic about that. So now comes back to us in the 11th round. Trey Benson, one of the top ones available on the board there, along with Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett. But the name that interests me here, there's a couple. It's Chase Brown and it's Jerome Ford. Brown might be the better player. I think Ford has maybe a quicker access to opportunity, but maybe not so much in the red zone. But I think right now we're going to go a bit more on the safer side, and we are going to go Jerome Ford here, just over Chase Brown. As it swings back around to us, Benson comes off of the board, but and there goes Chase Brown right at the back end of the 11th, just before Blake Corum. Also, Cortland Sutton and Romeo Doubs came off. Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Zach Charbonnet, that one stings a little, Mike Williams, Luke Musgrave, Jerry Jeudy, and Chuba Hubbard. So it is now back around to us. Receivers in this area right now: Jacoby Myers, Rashid Shaheed, Xavier Legette, Adonai Mitchell, and Joshua Palmer. In terms of the running backs that are available, according to their rankings at the top of the board, it is Keandre Miller, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Wright, Rico Dowdle, and Antonio Gibson. So not a whole lot is just screaming out at us right now. And so this is not something I would almost ever do in anything else, but I do think we are going to go with a backup quarterback here. And so one thing I forgot to check. No, we're not going to change it. Can I not check his player thing? Show player card. There we go. When is our bye week here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They don't have a bye until week 14? Holy crap. Okay, so week 14 bye. No, that's fine. Show player card. Where are we here? Week 11 bye. So we don't need a week 11 bye, and we don't need a week 14 bye. And so Bryce Young is out. Drake May is out. Daniel Jones out. Also, Bo Nix doesn't have anything for us at this point. And so it feels ugly to draft Derek Carr in anything. But I don't love the idea of coming out of this with just the two quarterbacks, especially a couple of guys who have been a little on the injured side. And so maybe I did wait a little bit long to get this this backup quarterback in, but we are going to go Derek Carr there and just make sure that we have some quarterback depth. And if the new hotness comes up, we can drop that guy tomorrow and feel very all right with that. All right, we have 3 picks left. We're into the 13th round. Nothing is jumping off of the board at me at this point, and so we are going to go the defensive route, and we're going to take the New York Jets with our pick here. So we get ahead of the defensive run, and then honestly, we'll see if there is a kicker run Jalen Wright comes off of the board. That was a name that I was maybe hoping for. The defenses have certainly started to pile off now. Chandler comes off the board as well, running back for Minnesota. But it swings back around to us, and now let's get ahead of the kicker run as well, drafting Tucker there in the 14th round, and then it'll swing back to us in the 15th. And with our final selection, we've gone Polk in this area, we've gone Pearsall here as well. But just seeing him down here, I think it's interesting, and like maybe because we don't have Bijan, it's not the most privy, but Tyler Algier with a last pick, if anything happens to Bijan, I think that's great. And also, how many teams just go with just one running back? So I think Tyler Algier has a great opportunity for carries. And so the two quarterbacks back-to-back, I don't think backfired on us at all. So our two quarterbacks in this league will be Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Travis Etienne and Isaiah Pacheco are our running backs. Our receivers are DK Metcalf and then one of Watson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Williams. Our tight end is Kittle, and our flex will be either one of those wide receivers or Ramondre Stevenson. I think going with the two quarterbacks there early, because there are players in the middle round that we're targeting and we're quite excited about, I feel really, really good about how all of this played out. So that's going to do it for this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Wherever you are consuming this, there are a bunch, 7 other mock drafts that have happened already. So go check those out. If you make sure you subscribe, if you are watching, make sure you like it. If you are listening, make sure you review it. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein, and I'll talk to all of you later. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.